Buy your own drink economy. We don't serve dogs up here.
The black woman in 3A didn't blink.
Say that again. Louder.
Garrett Coleman leaned in. His teeth showed.
I said, dogs don't get champagne.
She stood up, looked him dead in the face.
You're nothing but a loud drunk in a nice seat.
His neck went red. His hand shot to his glass. $400 of Dom Perignon. And he poured it down the front of her white silk blouse. Every drop. Slow.
Sit down, Mutt. Know your place.
The cabin froze. 15 passengers stared. Flight attendants stopped mid-aisle. Nobody moved. Nobody said one word. She wiped the champagne off her chin with one finger. And she smiled. Not a nervous smile. Not a polite smile. The kind of smile that means someone just signed their own death warrant.
Damn. But before you judge what happens next, let me take you back 6 hours. Let's go back 6 hours before that champagne hit her chest. Friday evening, late October. The kind of golden hour that makes even an airport look beautiful. Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International, the busiest airport in the world. The terminal hummed with rolling suitcases, crying babies, and the smell of Cinnabon drifting through the concourse. Gate B42, a Skylark Airlines flight to New York, boarding in 90 minutes. And there she was, standing in the economy check-in line like everyone else. Brianna Brooks, 42 years old, navy blue cardigan, reading glasses on a chain around her neck, a modest carry-on with a squeaky left wheel. No bodyguard, no assistant, no VIP lane. If you passed her in that terminal, you wouldn't look twice. You'd think she was a teacher, maybe a nurse heading home after a long shift, maybe somebody's aunt flying up for a birthday party. You would never guess that she owned the airline. Every plane, every route, every seat, including the one Garrett Coleman was about to spill champagne on. Skylark Airlines. 90 aircraft. 12,000 employees. Brianna built it from nothing. 12 years ago, she started with 3 leased regional jets and a dream that made bankers laugh in her face. Now, Forbes put her on their cover. Net worth, just north of $1 billion. But once a month, she did something her board of directors hated. She flew economy. On her own airline. No name on the manifest. No one told in advance. She called it her ghost ride. She carried a small leather journal. She wrote everything down. Were the bathrooms clean? Did the gate agents smile? Was the coffee hot? Was the boarding process smooth? Last month, her ghost ride notes led to new seat cushions across the entire fleet. The month before that, she fired a catering manager who'd been cutting portion sizes to save 12 cents per meal. This was how she built Skylark. Not from a corner office. From row 34. She pulled out her phone and texted her general counsel, Raymond Torres. Boarding soon. Row 34C. Testing the new snack service. Pray for me. He replied with a laughing emoji and 2 words. Godspeed. She smiled, tucked her phone away, and watched the gate fill up. Now let's meet the other side of this story. A black Escalade pulled up to the curbside drop-off. The door opened before the driver could get out. Garrett Coleman stepped onto the curb like he owned the concrete beneath his feet. Mid-50s, silver hair slicked back, a navy blazer that cost more than most people's rent. He snapped his fingers at the curbside porter. Hey, bags! Careful with the leather one. The porter loaded the luggage onto the cart. Garrett watched him like a hawk. Then he reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, and tossed it at the man's feet, not into his hand, at his feet. The porter stared at the bill on the ground. He picked it up without a word. Behind Garrett came his wife, Tiffany Coleman. Late 40s, blonde highlights, oversized sunglasses even though they were indoors. She was already recording a video for her social media. 12,000 followers who believed her life was perfect. "Babe, say hi to the camera." "Not now, Tiff." They swept into the first-class lounge like royalty entering a ballroom. Garrett grabbed a glass of champagne off the welcome tray without thanking the attendant. He sank into a leather chair, scanned the room, and said, not quietly, "The quality of people flying these days. Unbelievable." Tiffany laughed. She always laughed. That was the thing about Garrett. He wasn't some villain from a movie. He didn't twirl a mustache. He didn't plot evil schemes. He was something worse. A man who had never been told no. Not once in 55 years. He tipped badly. He spoke to waiters like furniture, and when he saw someone who didn't look like him in a space he considered his, something ugly crawled up from inside him. He didn't call it racism. He called it standards. The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. First-class passengers first. Garrett adjusted his cufflinks and walked down the jet bridge like it was a red carpet. Brianna boarded 20 minutes later. Group 4. Middle of the pack. She didn't know his name yet. He didn't know hers. That was about to change. The flight was full. Every economy seat taken. Every overhead bin stuffed to the limit. The air smelled like recycled oxygen and cheap hand sanitizer. Brianna found her seat. Row 34C. Aisle. Right next to a teenager with headphones so loud she could hear the bass from 2 feet away. She smiled, tucked her carry-on overhead, and settled in. She opened her leather journal, wrote the date, wrote the flight number, drew a small line down the middle of the page. Left side for things that worked, right side for things that didn't. The seat cushion felt firm. Good. The overhead light worked. Good. The air vent above her was stuck. Not good. She wrote it down. Then the gate agent appeared in the aisle. "Ma'am, Brianna Brooks?" Brianna looked up. "Yes?" "We're overbooked in economy tonight. Our system has flagged you for a complimentary upgrade to first class, seat 3A. Would you like to move?" Standard Skylark protocol. When economy oversold, the system auto-selected passengers for upgrades based on loyalty points. The gate agent had no idea who Brianna was. She just saw a name on a screen. Brianna hesitated. Her ghost ride was supposed to be economy. That was the whole point. But then she thought about it. She hadn't audited first-class service in 3 months. Her journal needed those notes too. "Sure. Thank you." She grabbed her carry-on and followed the agent up the aisle. Past row 20. Past row 10. Through the curtain that separated economy from first class, and right into seat 3A, window side. The seat next to her, 3B, was already occupied. Garrett Coleman. He was leaning back with his eyes closed, a glass of pre-departure champagne resting on his armrest. His blazer was draped over the headrest like a flag claiming territory. His shoes were off. His socked feet were crossed at the ankle. When Brianna sat down, the leather seat creaked. Garrett opened one eye. Then both eyes. He looked at her the way you look at a stain on a white tablecloth. He didn't say anything. Not yet. He just pressed the call button above his head. One long press, the kind that says, "I need someone here now." Denise Harmon appeared within 30 seconds. 28 years old, 2 years with Skylark. Her uniform was crisp. Her smile was rehearsed. Her hands were steady. For now. "How can I help you, sir?" Garrett pointed at Brianna with his thumb. Didn't even look at her. "There's been a mistake. This seat is first class." Denise glanced at Brianna, then back at Garrett. "Yes, sir, I'm aware. The passenger has a valid first-class boarding pass." "Valid? She just walked up from the back." "She received a complimentary upgrade, sir. It's standard procedure when economy is oversold." Garrett made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a grunt. "Standard procedure. Right." He shook his head and turned toward the window, but his jaw was tight. His fingers drummed the armrest. The vein on his temple pulsed beneath the skin. Brianna said nothing. She buckled her seatbelt. She opened her journal. She wrote, "First-class seat. Comfortable. Legroom excellent. Crew response time. 30 seconds. Good." Denise moved to the galley. The pre-departure champagne service began. She started from row 1, pouring Dom Perignon into crystal flutes with a practiced hand. The golden liquid caught the overhead light. The cabin smelled like fresh bread and expensive perfume. When she reached row 3, she poured Garrett's second glass first. He took it without acknowledgement. Then she turned to Brianna. "Ma'am, would you like some champagne?" Before Brianna could answer, Garrett's hand came across. He placed his palm flat over the second glass. "That's not for her." Denise blinked. "I'm sorry?" "She's an upgrade. Upgrades don't get the full service. Everyone knows that." That was a lie. Skylark's policy was clear. Every first-class passenger received identical service, regardless of how they booked. Denise knew this. She'd trained on it. But the man in front of her was loud, aggressive, and staring her down like she owed him something. Brianna watched the whole thing. She saw Denise's hand tremble around the neck of the bottle. She saw the flicker of panic behind the young woman's eyes. So Brianna made it easy. "It's fine. I'll just have water." Garrett smirked. He lifted his glass, took a long, slow sip while staring at Brianna over the rim. Across the aisle, Tiffany Coleman sat in 3C. She mouthed, "Oh my God," to Garrett with a grin on her face. Then she reached into her Chanel bag and pulled out her phone, hit record, angled the camera toward Brianna. The seatbelt sign turned off. The plane climbed above the clouds. The cabin lights dimmed to a warm amber glow. Dinner service started 40 minutes in. Denise returned with the menu. 2 options tonight: pan-seared filet mignon with truffle butter, or herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables. Garrett ordered first. "Filet, medium rare, and another glass." Denise nodded, turned to Brianna. "And for you, ma'am?" "I'll have the filet as well, please." Garrett's head snapped sideways. "There's only so many of those. Shouldn't the paying customers get first pick?" The woman in seat 2A, white, early 60s, silver hair in a neat bun, turned around slowly. She'd been reading a novel. Now she wasn't. "She is a paying customer." Garrett's eyes went cold. "Mind your own business." The woman in 2A held his gaze for 2 full seconds. Then she turned back around. But her book stayed closed for the rest of the flight. Denise excused herself and walked to the galley. She stood behind the curtain where no one could see her. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were wet. She pressed her palms flat against the steel counter and took 3 deep breaths. She'd dealt with difficult passengers before. Spilled drinks, rude comments, the occasional drunk who needed to be cut off. But this was different. This wasn't a complaint about cold coffee. This was a man who looked at another human being and decided she was less. And he did it calmly, casually, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Denise wiped her eyes, straightened her collar, and went back out. Brianna noticed everything. She said nothing to Garrett, but she opened her journal and wrote 3 words in the margin, underlined twice. Protect the crew. The cabin settled into the quiet hum of cruising altitude. Passengers ate, glasses clinked. The stars outside the window looked like scattered salt on black cloth. Then came the window shade. Brianna had hers open. She liked watching the night sky. The way city lights looked like circuits on a motherboard from 40,000 feet. The way the wing light blinked red every 2 seconds like a heartbeat. Garrett reached across her. Didn't ask, didn't warn. Just slammed the shade shut with a flat palm. The plastic rattled. "Glare's bothering me." Brianna waited 1 beat. Then she reached up and slid it back open, slowly. "I prefer it open." He turned to face her fully for the first time, squared his shoulders. His voice dropped to something low and jagged. "You don't want to make this a problem."
She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't shift a single inch in her seat.
It's already a problem.
The temperature between them dropped 10 degrees. The passenger in row 5, a young man in a college hoodie, quietly raised his phone beneath the seat in front of him. He hit record. The red dot blinked in the dark. Garrett turned away first. He flagged Denise for another drink, his third. The champagne kept flowing, the altitude kept climbing, and the tension in that cabin coiled tighter with every passing minute. Something was going to break.
It was just a matter of when.
An hour passed. The cabin lights dimmed further. Most of first class had settled into that quiet rhythm, half sleep, half movie, the low hum of engines filling the space between thoughts. But not row 3. Garrett was on his 4th champagne. His cheeks were flushed. His movements were getting bigger. His voice was getting louder. The kind of drunk that doesn't make a man sloppy, it makes him mean.
Brianna had her laptop open. The screen glowed white-blue against her face. She was reviewing Skylark's third-quarter earnings report. Profit margins. Fuel costs. Route expansion into 3 new cities. The Skylark logo sat in the top corner of every slide. Small, silver, unmistakable. The logo was angled toward her, away from Garrett, but the screen was bright enough that anyone leaning over could catch a glimpse. And Garrett was the leaning over type. He tilted his head, squinted at her laptop. She felt his eyes on the screen before she saw them. "What's that? Playing CEO on your little computer?" Brianna didn't respond. She scrolled to the next page. Revenue projections for Q4. Hey, I'm talking to you. She still didn't look up. Must be nice, pretending to be important at 30,000 feet. What is that, some kind of business school homework? Brianna closed the earnings report, opened her email instead. The subject line at the top read, Board meeting, Monday, 9 a.m., Skylark HQ. She didn't hide it. She didn't need to. Garrett snorted, took another gulp of champagne. The crystal glass was almost empty. A single bead of golden liquid clung to the rim. Then he did it. He shifted his wrist, turned the glass, and poured what was left, every last drop of $400 Dom Perignon, directly onto Brianna's laptop and down the front of her white silk blouse. It wasn't an accident. The wrist turned too far. The angle was too precise. The speed was too controlled, slow, steady, intentional. The champagne hit the keyboard first. The screen flickered. Then it ran down, soaking into the silk, spreading across her chest like a dark gold stain.
The cabin heard it before they saw it. The splash. The tiny gasp from the woman in 2A. The sharp intake of breath from Denise, who was 3 steps away with a dinner tray. Garrett set his empty glass down on the armrest, straightened his blazer, and said it like he was commenting on the weather. Oops, buy your own next time, economy. Across the aisle, Tiffany laughed, that sharp, performative laugh she saved for moments when she wanted Garrett to know she was impressed. Her phone was already recording, had been for the last 10 minutes. The young man in row 5 adjusted his phone beneath the seat, still recording. His hand was trembling, but the camera was steady. Silence. Total silence. The engines hummed. The air recycling system whispered through the vents. But inside that first-class cabin, not a single human being made a sound. Brianna looked down at her blouse. The champagne was still spreading. She could feel it, cold, wet, crawling across her skin like something alive. Her laptop screen was dark. Dead. 3 months of annotated reports. Gone. She closed the laptop. Slowly. The click of the latch echoed in the quiet. She picked up her napkin, pressed it against her chest. One firm press. Then she set it down on the armrest, folded, deliberate, like someone putting a period at the end of a sentence. Then she turned to Garrett. Not fast, not panicked, the way a judge turns to face a defendant. She looked at him for 5 full seconds. Didn't blink, didn't breathe visibly. 5 seconds of pure, unbroken eye contact. Garrett's smirk faded. Not all the way. But the corners twitched. Something behind his eyes shifted. A flicker, fast, like a candle in a draft. He wasn't scared. Not yet. But something in his body knew what his brain hadn't figured out. Then she spoke. Quiet.
low, every word cut from stone. "You're going to regret that." Garrett recovered fast. The smirk came back, bigger now, overcompensating.
Oh yeah? Is that a threat? Go ahead. Call the air marshal. Call whoever you want. You think anyone on this plane is going to take your side over mine?
He looked around the cabin for support. Some passengers looked away. Others stared at their screens. Nobody met his eyes. But nobody spoke up either. Brianna didn't argue, didn't raise her voice. She simply reached up and pressed the call button. One short press. Calm.
Denise appeared in 4 seconds. Her face was tight. Her notepad was trembling in her hand. Brianna looked at her. Not through her. At her.
"Denise, could you please ask the captain to come to the cabin when he has a moment? Tell him Brianna Brooks would like a word."
Denise's lips parted. Her pen slipped from her fingers and hit the carpet without a sound.
Brianna Brooks.
The name hit her like ice water.
She'd seen it on every paycheck she'd ever received. She'd seen it on the plaque in the Skylark Training Center. She'd seen it on the Forbes cover pinned to the break room bulletin board. Brianna Brooks, founder, CEO, owner of Skylark Airlines. The woman sitting in 3A with champagne dripping down her chest was her boss's boss's boss. Denise picked up her pen. Her voice came out small but steady. "Right away, ma'am."
She turned and walked to the cockpit.
Each step faster than the last. She knocked twice. The reinforced door clicked open. Captain Ellis Moore looked up from the instrument panel. 25 years in commercial aviation, gray at the temples, calm hands, the kind of pilot who'd landed in crosswinds that made co-pilots pray. "Captain, there's a situation in the cabin." "What kind of situation?" "A passenger in 3B has been harassing the woman in 3A. He poured champagne on her, deliberately." Moore frowned. "That's assault. Have him warned. If he continues, we divert." "Sir, the woman in 3A asked me to bring you to the cabin personally." "Who is she?" Denise swallowed. "Brianna Brooks." The captain's hands stopped moving. He looked at Denise like she just told him the president was in row 3. "Brianna Brooks is on this plane?" "Yes, sir. She was in economy, got upgraded to 3A. "And someone poured champagne on her?" "Yes, sir."
Moore was already unbuckling his harness. He straightened his captain's hat, adjusted his tie, checked his reflection in the dark glass of the instrument panel. "Tell the first officer he has the controls." He stood up, 6'2", broad shoulders filling the cockpit doorway. He stepped into the galley, through the curtain, and into first class. Back in the cabin, Garrett didn't notice the captain approaching. He was too busy telling his version of events to the passengers in row 4. "These people get a free upgrade, and suddenly they think they own the place? You know how it is. Give 'em an inch." Tiffany nodded from across the aisle. "We pay $20,000 a year in first-class tickets, and this is what we get? This is the experience?"
The woman in 2A turned around one more time. Her voice was steel, wrapped in silk. "What you get is a seat on an airplane, same as everyone else."
Garrett pointed at her. Spoken like someone who's never built anything in her life.
The woman in 2A smiled, thin, sharp, the kind of smile that says, "I know something you don't." Behind Garrett, Captain Moore stopped walking. He stood, perfectly still, at the edge of row 3, hands behind his back, waiting for Garrett to finish digging his own grave.
"No, you guys. This is insane.
Imagine you're sitting right there, champagne dripping down your shirt, and the man who did it is laughing in your face. What would you do? Because what happens next? Nobody saw it coming.
Captain Ellis Moore walked through first class like a man on a mission. Full uniform, 4 gold stripes on each shoulder. His shoes clicked against the cabin floor with every step. He walked past row 1, past row 2. He walked right past Garrett Coleman without a glance, and stopped at 3A.
Garrett was mid-sentence. Something about how airlines had gone downhill. His mouth was still open when the captain spoke. "Ms. Brooks." Moore's voice filled the cabin, clear, respectful, the kind of tone you use when you're addressing someone who matters. "I am so sorry. I had no idea you were aboard today." He extended his hand. Brianna stood. She shook it, firm, brief. Garrett's mouth closed. His eyes moved from the captain to Brianna, then back to the captain. "Wait, you know her?" Moore didn't answer him. Not right away. He kept his eyes on Brianna for a moment longer. Then he turned, slow, the way a searchlight swings toward a target. He looked at Garrett Coleman the way a man looks at something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. "Sir, this is Brianna Brooks." A pause, heavy. The whole cabin leaned in.
She is the founder and chief executive officer of Skylark Airlines. She owns this aircraft. She owns every aircraft in our fleet. She owns this airline. Another pause. Moore let each word land like a hammer. She signs my paycheck. She signs your flight attendant's paycheck. She built the seat you're sitting in. The air left the cabin. Every passenger held their breath. The engines roared outside, but inside, nothing. Pure, deafening nothing.
Garrett's face went through 4 stages in 3 seconds. Confusion, then recognition, then denial, then terror. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. His champagne glass, empty now, the same glass he'd poured on her, sat on the armrest between them, like evidence at a crime scene. Across the aisle, Tiffany lowered her phone. Slowly. The way someone lowers a weapon when they realize they're outgunned. Her face had gone white. Not pale. White. Like every drop of blood had drained straight to her feet. The woman in 2A let out a single, quiet breath. Almost a laugh. Almost. The young man in row 5 was still recording. His hand wasn't shaking anymore. Brianna smoothed the front of her champagne-stained blouse. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. When you own the room, you can whisper, and everyone will hear. "Captain, I'd like this passenger and his wife removed from first class and reseated immediately. If there are no available seats in economy, they can wait in the crew rest area until we land." "Yes, ma'am."
I want a full incident report filed before wheels down. Include statements from every crew member who witnessed what happened tonight. Understood. Then she turned to Denise. The young flight attendant was standing 3 feet away. Her eyes were red. Her hands were clasped in front of her so tight her knuckles had gone pale. Brianna's voice changed. Softer now. Warmer. Like a mother talking to her daughter after a hard day. "Denise, you did nothing wrong tonight. Not one thing. I want you to know that." Denise's chin trembled. She nodded. A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it fast with the back of her wrist and straightened her shoulders. "Thank you, ma'am." Now Garrett found his voice. It came out loud, too loud, the kind of loud that's trying to cover up the sound of a man's world falling apart. "This is ridiculous! I'm a client of this airline. I spend $20,000 a year on—" Brianna didn't turn around. She was already sitting back down, already pulling her stained laptop from the seat pocket. She spoke over her shoulder like she was correcting a typo. Garrett blinked. "What?" "You were a client." 3 words, past tense. The most expensive 3 words Garrett Coleman had ever heard. Captain Moore stepped forward. A second crew member appeared from the galley. Broad-shouldered, calm, trained for exactly this. They flanked Garrett on both sides.
"Sir, please collect your belongings. You're being reseated."
Garrett looked at Moore, looked at the crew member, looked at Brianna's back. His jaw worked like he was chewing on words he couldn't swallow. Tiffany was already on her feet. She grabbed Garrett's arm. Her whisper was sharp enough to cut glass. "Do something." He couldn't. Garrett, do something. He had nothing. They walked down the aisle together. Past row 4. Past row 5. Past the young man with the phone, who didn't even try to hide it anymore. Past the curtain that separated first class from economy. The curtain swished shut behind them like a final sentence.
Gone. The cabin was quiet for exactly 4 seconds. Then the woman in 2A started clapping. Slow, deliberate, 1 clap per second. The man in row 1 joined. Then the couple in row 2. Then row 4. Row 5. The young man with the phone clapped with one hand while the other kept recording. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a standing ovation. It was something better. The quiet, steady applause of people who just watched the right thing happen. Brianna didn't acknowledge it. She opened her ruined laptop. The screen was dead, but she tried anyway. She pressed the power button twice. Nothing. She closed it, pulled out her leather journal instead, and went back to work. The plane touched down at JFK at 11:47 p.m. The wheels hit the tarmac hard. The cabin jolted. Overhead bins rattled. But nobody in first class moved. They were all watching row 3. Brianne had her phone out before the seatbelt sign turned off. 1 call, 30 seconds. Raymond, I need you at JFK arrivals. Bring the legal team. All of them.
Raymond Torres, Skylark's general counsel, didn't ask questions. He'd worked with Brianna for 9 years. When she said all of them, she meant all of them. 20 minutes. Make it 15. She hung up. The jet bridge connected with a dull metallic thud. The cabin door opened. Cold New York air rushed in, carrying the smell of jet fuel and rain-soaked concrete. Garrett and Tiffany were escorted off first, not by a flight attendant, by airport security. 2 officers in black uniforms standing at the cabin door when it opened. Captain Moore had radioed ahead 20 minutes before landing. Garrett walked up the jet bridge with his blazer wrinkled and his jaw clenched. Tiffany walked 2 steps behind him, clutching her Chanel bag like a life raft. Neither of them spoke. The other passengers deplaned behind them. Every single one of them watched the Colemans walk past with security on each side. Some shook their heads. Some whispered. The young man from row 5 had already uploaded the first 15 seconds of his video to Twitter. At the end of the jet bridge, Garrett tried one last card. He stopped walking, straightened his blazer, looked the security officer dead in the eye. I manage a $2 billion fund. Pinnacle Capital Group. You know the name. You don't want to do this. The officer's face didn't change. Not even a flicker. Sir, please keep walking. Garrett kept walking. In the arrivals hall, Raymond Torres was already there. Gray suit, leather briefcase, 2 junior attorneys behind him. He spotted Brianna coming through the gate and met her halfway. How bad? He poured champagne on me. Deliberately. Called me an animal. In front of the entire cabin.
Raymond's jaw tightened. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a yellow legal pad. Witnesses? 15 at least, plus 2 recordings that I know of, one from his own wife. Raymond wrote fast, his pen scratched against the paper like it was angry. We'll have a formal statement drafted by morning. Within 3 hours, Skylark Airlines' crisis PR team had a statement live on every platform.
Skylark Airlines has 0 tolerance for harassment, racial abuse, or assault against our passengers and crew. The individuals involved have been permanently banned from all Skylark flights, effective immediately. This ban is irrevocable. Denise Harmon received a formal commendation from the airline before sunrise. A handwritten note from Brianna was attached. It read, "You stood your ground when it mattered. Skylark is lucky to have you." Denise was given a week of paid leave and a direct phone line to HR if she needed anything. But the real storm was just beginning. The video hit the internet at 12:15 a.m. The young man from row 5, a 21-year-old college student named Jake, posted the full 4-minute clip with one caption. This man poured champagne on a woman who owns the airline. By 1 a.m., it had 500,000 views. By 3 a.m., 2 million. By sunrise, 4 million. Climbing. The hashtag #BuyYourOwnEconomy was trending #1 nationally, #3 worldwide. Every major news outlet picked it up. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, ABC. The clip played on a loop,
Garrett's wrist turning, the champagne falling, Brianna's face perfectly still. Then the captain's voice. She owns this airline. Comment sections exploded. Tens of thousands of replies. People sharing their own stories of being humiliated for how they looked, for where they sat, for what someone assumed about them. Garrett's phone started ringing at 6 a.m. His publicist. He answered on the second ring.
Craig, thank God. We need to get ahead of this.
Garrett, I'm calling to inform you that our firm is terminating our contract with you, effective immediately. The line went dead. By noon, Pinnacle Capital Group, Garrett's own firm, the empire he'd spent 30 years building, issued a public statement. The views and actions of Mr. Coleman do not reflect the values of Pinnacle Capital Group. We are reviewing the matter internally.
Reviewing. Corporate language for we're figuring out how fast we can cut you loose. Garrett sat in his Manhattan apartment, alone. Tiffany was in the bedroom with the door locked. His phone buzzed every 30 seconds with a notification he was afraid to read. The champagne stain on Brianna's blouse had dried hours ago, but the stain on Garrett's life was just starting to spread. The first lawsuit landed on Garrett Coleman's desk on Monday morning, 3 days after the champagne hit Brianna's blouse. Raymond Torres filed it in federal court, Southern District of New York. The charges were clean and brutal: assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, violation of federal air passenger conduct statutes under 49 U.S.C. Section 46503. The filing was 17 pages long. Every page was a nail in Garrett's coffin. That same Monday, the FAA opened a formal investigation. A spokesperson held a press conference at noon. Short, direct, no smiles. The Federal Aviation Administration has adopted a zero-tolerance policy toward disruptive and violent behavior aboard commercial aircraft. We are investigating an incident that occurred on Skylark Airlines Flight 341 on Friday, October 24th. We take this matter extremely seriously. Reporters shouted questions. The spokesperson walked away without answering a single one. By Wednesday, the story had grown legs. 3 former employees of Pinnacle Capital Group came forward, 2 men and 1 woman. They didn't know each other. They'd never spoken. But their stories sounded like chapters from the same book. The first, a junior analyst named Derek Adams, told reporters that Garrett once threw a stack of papers at him during a meeting and said, "Maybe if your people spent less time complaining and more time working, you wouldn't need affirmative action." The second, a portfolio manager named Angela Davis, said Garrett refused to shake her hand at a company dinner. He told the person next to him, loud enough for her to hear, "I don't do that." The third, a compliance officer named Stephen Wallace, described a culture of fear. If you weren't white and male, you kept your head down. That was the unwritten rule. Everyone knew it. HR knew it. Nobody did anything. A separate employment discrimination lawsuit was filed by Thursday. Class action. 7 plaintiffs. Pinnacle Capital Group's board held an emergency session that Friday. Behind closed doors. The meeting lasted 4 hours. When the doors opened, a 1-paragraph statement was released. Garrett Coleman has been placed on indefinite administrative leave, effective immediately. The board is conducting a thorough internal review of workplace culture and practices. Administrative leave. The corporate version of putting someone in time out while you figure out how to fire them legally. But the money was already moving. 2 of Pinnacle's largest institutional investors, a state pension fund and a university endowment, pulled their assets within 48 hours. Combined total, $600 million. Gone. The pension fund manager gave a single quote to the Wall Street Journal. We cannot entrust public retirement funds to a firm led by an individual who demonstrates this level of moral failure.
Tiffany Coleman's world collapsed in parallel. Her 12,000 social media followers shrank to 3,000 in a week. Brand deals disappeared overnight. The organic skincare company dropped her first, then the luxury handbag line, then the boutique hotel chain that had been paying her to post poolside photos. She deleted her accounts on Tuesday. By Wednesday, someone had archived every post, every champagne selfie, every comment where she'd laughed at someone beneath her. The internet doesn't forget. It just bookmarks. The civil trial began 6 weeks later, fast-tracked. The judge cited overwhelming public interest and the clarity of video evidence as grounds for an expedited hearing. The courtroom was standing room only. Reporters filled the gallery. 2 sketch artists sat in the front row. The air smelled like old wood and new tension. Brianna took the stand on day 1. She wore a navy blue suit, no jewelry. Her voice was steady from the first word to the last. She described the flight, the champagne service, the insults, the window shade. She described the moment Garrett poured the Dom Perignon on her blouse. She described the smell of it, the cold, the way it felt crawling down her skin. Then the prosecutor asked, "Miss Brooks, why do you believe the defendant targeted you?" Brianna paused. 3 seconds. She looked at Garrett, sitting at the defense table in a suit that didn't fit as well as it used to. And then she looked at the jury. This wasn't about champagne. This wasn't about a seat. This was about a man who looked at me and decided I didn't belong. Not in first class, not in his space, not anywhere near him. He didn't see a CEO. He didn't see a businesswoman. He saw a black woman. And in his mind, that was enough to make me less. The courtroom was silent. One juror, a woman in her 50s, wiped her eye with her thumb. Garrett took the stand on day 2. His attorney had prepped him for hours. Stay calm. Be remorseful. Don't get defensive. He lasted 11 minutes. Under cross-examination, the prosecutor asked one question that broke him open. "Mr. Coleman, when you first saw Ms. Brooks in seat 3A, you pressed the call button and told the flight attendant there had been a mistake. Why did you assume she didn't belong there?" Garrett's mouth opened, closed, opened again.
She came from economy. I saw her walk up from the back of the plane. You saw dozens of passengers board that day. Did you question anyone else's seat assignment? Silence. Mr. Coleman? No. What was different about Ms. Brooks? His attorney objected. The judge overruled. What was different about Ms. Brooks, Mr. Coleman? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Every person in that courtroom already knew.
The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They came back with a unanimous verdict. Liable on all counts. Garrett was ordered to pay $1.2 million in compensatory and punitive damages. The judge, a 63-year-old veteran of the federal bench, read his closing statement without looking at Garrett once.
This case represents a textbook example of racialized entitlement, the belief that one's wealth or appearance grants authority over another human being. The court finds this conduct not merely offensive, but dangerous. 2 weeks later, the FAA referred the case for federal criminal charges. Disruptive behavior aboard a commercial aircraft. Garrett's attorney negotiated a plea. No contest.
The sentence, 6 months of community service, a $50,000 fine, a 3-year ban from all commercial aviation in the United States. And Pinnacle Capital Group made it permanent. Garrett was terminated. His name was removed from the company letterhead, scraped off the lobby wall, and deleted from the website. 30 Years of building an empire, erased in 6 weeks. All because of one glass of champagne.
Paula Grant, a senior correspondent for a national news network, aired a 10-minute profile on Brianna Brooks the following Sunday. It opened with the Forbes cover. It ended with the footage from row 5. In between, it told the story of a 19-year-old gate agent who built an airline from nothing. 42 million people watched that segment. Garrett Coleman watched it. Alone. Section 8. Epilogue and Final CTA. 896, 900 words.
6 months passed. The world moved on the way it always does. New headlines, new scandals, new outrage cycles. But the people in this story didn't move on. They moved forward. In very different directions. Brianna Brooks stood behind a podium at Skylark Airlines headquarters in Atlanta on a Tuesday morning in April. The room was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters sat in folding chairs with notebooks open. The Skylark logo glowed silver on the screen behind her.
She announced the Skylark Open Skies Scholarship. Full tuition, books, housing, flight training fees, all covered. For Black students pursuing careers in aviation, pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, aerospace designers, no strings, no payback, just opportunity. First cohort, 25 students, selected from over 4,000 applicants.
A 19-year-old girl from Compton sat in the front row. She wanted to be a pilot. She'd never been on a plane before she flew to the interview. Her mother sat next to her, clutching a tissue in both hands, already crying before the ceremony started. When Brianna shook the girl's hand after the announcement, the girl whispered, "You're the reason I applied." Brianna squeezed her hand and said, "No, you're the reason I built this."
The scholarship wasn't charity. It was architecture. Brianna was building the next generation of an industry that had ignored people who looked like her for 100 years. And she was doing it with her name on every single check. Every year. No ceiling. No expiration date. The girl from Compton started flight school in June. She posted a photo on the first day, standing next to a Cessna 172 in a flight suit 2 sizes too big. The caption read, "First one in my family to touch a cloud." Brianna reposted it. No comment, just a heart emoji. It got 2 million likes. Denise Harmon didn't go back to pushing drink carts. Brianna created a brand new position at Skylark, Director of Passenger Experience. The job was simple on paper. Make sure every passenger on every Skylark flight was treated with dignity. Make sure every crew member had the support to do their job without fear. Denise got the job. She didn't apply. Brianna called her directly. "You stood up when it mattered, Denise. I need someone who does that every day. Not once. Every single day." Denise said yes before Brianna finished the sentence. Her first act in the new role was implementing a crew protection protocol, a system that allowed any flight attendant to flag abusive passenger behavior in real time, triggering immediate intervention from senior crew. No more freezing. No more swallowing tears behind the galley curtain. No more choosing between your dignity and your paycheck. Skylark adopted it fleet-wide within 60 days. 3 other airlines contacted Brianna's office asking for the framework. She gave it to them for free.
Garrett Coleman's life looked very different in April. No corner office, no $2 billion fund, no first-class lounge, no black Escalade. The man who once threw $5 bills at porters' feet was now working at a regional financial advisory firm in Stamford, Connecticut. Small office, shared parking lot, a desk by the window that looked out at a strip mall with a nail salon and a sandwich shop.
His name still pulled results on Google. Every single one of them was bad. The video, the trial, the verdict, the Paula Grant segment. Page after page after page, a digital monument to the worst moment of his life. the moment he chose to be cruel to a stranger because of the color of her skin. He didn't do interviews. He didn't make statements. His attorney had advised him to stay invisible for at least 2 years, maybe 5, maybe forever.
Invisibility. The one thing Garrett had spent his whole life making sure other people felt. Now it was his. Tiffany filed for divorce in March. The papers cited irreconcilable differences. But everyone who read the tabloids knew the real reason. She'd attached herself to power. When the power disappeared, so did she. She moved to Scottsdale, changed her hair, deleted her digital footprint as best she could. But the internet has a long memory and a short forgiveness span.
On a quiet evening in May, Brianna sat in her corner office on the 14th floor of Skylark headquarters. The Atlanta skyline glowed orange through the glass. Her desk was clean. Her laptop, a new one, replacing the one that died in Champaign, was closed. She looked at the framed photo on the wall to her left. A 19-year-old girl in a gate agent vest. Crooked name tag. Tired eyes. Bright smile. That girl had no idea what was coming. No idea she'd build an airline. No idea a man would pour champagne on her and call her an animal. No idea that 23 years later she'd turn the worst moment of her career into a scholarship, a movement, and a crew protection system used by 4 airlines across the country. Brianna smiled at the photo. The same smile she'd given Garrett on the plane, but softer now, warmer. The smile of a woman who had nothing left to prove. Outside the window, a Skylark 737 lifted off the runway. Its wing light blinked red against the purple sky. Once, twice. Then it disappeared into the clouds.
Man, this story is fiction. But that feeling of being judged before you even open your mouth? That's real. Now imagine you're sitting in that cabin. Champagne hits the woman next to you. Do you speak up or stay quiet? Tell me in the comments. And if this one hit you, like, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.